Central Unified School District Board of Trustees meeting for February 23rd, 2021 is called to order at 6:06. Please note that this meeting is being broadcasted and recorded, so if you participate, it's very likely that your likeness may be recorded. Any members of the public wishing to address the board on any closed session items, the number to dial is 559-276-3150. Our first order of business is attendance. Please let the record reflect that all board members except for Trustee Cervantes are present. Our next item is adoption of the agenda. What are the wishes of the board on this item?
Motion to approve.
I have a motion by Trustee Solis. Is there a second? I have a second by Trustee Chan.
President Carrillo, can I request that we table one until March 9th, next board meeting?
Okay, so we did have a motion and a second, but we have a request to table L1 to our March 9th meeting. Our maker of the motion, will you accept? And
I'll amend my motion.
Thank you. The second, Trustee Chan, do you accept the amendment? Okay. So our agenda is amended to table item L1 to our March 9th board meeting. And so with that,
can I just add, we do have registration that's completing this week at the high school. Once the registration is complete, we should be able to analyze what the sections are being called for the next school year. So the resolution may need to be amended on March the 9th.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Okay. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Okay. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. The agenda is approved as amended. Next, we will take comments from the public on our closed session items. Once again, to the members of the public, if you wish to address the board on any closed session items, now is the time to call. The dial-in number is 559-276-3150. If we have any members in attendance wishing to address the board, now is the time to approach the podium. Do we have any calls for public comment at this time for closed session items?
President Carrillo, we have no calls at this time.
Thank you. Please let the record reflect for attendance purposes that Trustee Cervantes has joined us at 6:10. And with no public comments from the public on our closed session items, we will now adjourn to closed session, and we will return to open session at 7 p.m. or as soon as thereafter. Thank you.
Yeah, can you just talk to me a little bit more?
Yep, testing 1, 2, 3, testing.
Our board reconvenes to open session. Items to report from our closed session. The certificated personnel report was approved 7-0 by a motion by Trustee Cervantes and a second by Trustee Solis. The classified personnel report was also approved 7-0 by a motion by Trustee Solis and a second by Trustee Brooks. Just a friendly reminder to all the members of the public wishing to address the board today on any item, actually on items not currently on the agenda. The number to dial is 559-276-3150, and the time to call is during public comment. Also, if you did not join us at the start of this meeting, the agenda was revised and item L1 has been tabled to March 9th. Once again, the number to dial and the time to dial would be under public comments for any comment on any item not currently on the agenda. And with that, we move on to Pledge of Allegiance. Vice President Solis. Thank you. We now move on to presentation reports, employee highlights. Do we have a representative from our Central Unified Teachers Association?
President Carrillo, she will be dialing in about 5 seconds.
Thank you.
Judy? Okay,
Yes.
there we go. Okay, you are on with the board.
Okay. Thank you, President Carrillo. Good evening, board trustees and superintendents. Tonight, I would like to highlight the virtual academic awards held by Liddell on February 4th and 5th. All students and their families logged into Zoom to watch their 3rd through 6th graders being presented with awards for Academic All-Stars, which is a 4.0, Honor Roll, Merit List, GPA Improvement, Lion of the Week, Lion of the Month, and Character Count. Students and their families were also able to pick up their certificates following the virtual presentation. Congratulations to all our Liddell Lions. February 17th was National Kindness Week, and at Harvest Elementary, our Hawks were responsible for many acts of kindness. They read stories to their grandparents, they wrote thank you letters to their parents, librarians, and our first responders. Way to go, Harvest Hawks. I'm sure your kindness was very much appreciated. A huge thank you and shout out to our educators and administration for continuing to make learning and these wonderful events happen. There is light at the end of the tunnel with the vaccines and improved access to regular COVID-19 testing, but we cannot let our guard down prematurely. While rates are declining, our counties are still experiencing high community transmission. And as you may have heard, new variants have emerged, some of which are more highly transmissible. So let's continue to be safe. We are almost there. I will end by saying that we are looking forward to a vaccine day for educators. I have it on a very good authority that this will be happening very soon. Isn't that right, Mr. Collegian? Thank you, Board Trustees. Have a great evening.
Thank you.
Hi, Laura. Yes. You are on with the board.
I am right now. Oh my goodness, sorry, I didn't realize that. Okay, hi, this is Laura Bolton from teacher positions.
Ms. Bolton,
Oh,
can
Ms. Bolton?
can we have
Yeah.
you hold and we will take your comment during public comment?
Hello?
Okay, looks like that call is for public comment. We'll move on with our agenda. California School Employees Association, we do not have a report today. And we move on to Superintendent and Board Communications. Before I turn over the mic to Superintendent Alvarado, I just want to remind the public, now is the time to dial in if you wish to provide a comment during public comment. The number to dial is 559-276-3150. That's an opportunity for the public to address the board on any item not currently being discussed on the agenda. And with that, Superintendent Alvarado.
Thank you, President Carrillo, members of the board and community who are joining us virtually, and some that are in attendance this evening. The Janessa Ramirez Scholarship applications open March the 1st for all seniors in the district. This year, 7 seniors will receive a $2,500 scholarship. Seniors can also go to the centralfoundation.org website for more information. Athletes as readers and leaders. The Central Grizzly athletes as readers have been reading books by Black authors to our elementary students for Black History Month. Thank you very much for all their hard efforts. California Young Reader Medal event. We're proud of Central East student Alana Castellano, who introduced Neil Schusterman, a famed young adult author, at the California Young Reader Medal event at CSLA. What an honor that was for Alana. Our cross-country team competed in their first event yesterday at Fresno High School, and it's exciting to see our athletes come back onto the field. Dr. Chike Akua did a presentation to all the Central High School students and staff entitled "From History to Destiny, What does it mean to be Black?" It was well received and a great event for Black History Month in our district and high schools. That is it. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any comments from any trustee? Hearing and seeing no comments, we will move on with our next agenda item. Comments from the public. At this time, if there is any member of the public wishing to address the board, the number to dial is 559-276-3150. A friendly reminder, this is an opportunity for the community to address the board on any item not being discussed on the agenda. Each member will have 1.5 minutes to address the board. Please conclude your comment when the timer finishes so we can move on to the next community member. Do we have any public comment?
Yes, President Carrillo, our first caller is Laura Bolton, who is a teacher and community member.
Thank you. Ms. Bolton, give us 1 second for us to set the timer, and then we will let you know when it's ready to go.
Okay. Laura, you are on with the board.
Okay, thank you. Hi, this is Laura Bolton, and I wanted to call in support of retaining the 10 teacher positions. The bargaining team is working really hard to find a high school schedule that would provide a solution to retain the maximum number of teacher jobs while providing the most opportunity for students with electives and enrichment and support, academic support. Some of those positions that are being proposed to be eliminated are those enrichment positions. So I implore you to give this some time, let our team continue to work this out, and to retain those positions. And if you are a teacher or a community member who had prepared a statement to call in, you should still do so. Your voice matters, and it makes a difference, and it will help. So please call in. That's my time. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
President Carrillo, we also have Beth Hollander, staff member, who's calling in now.
Thank you.
Hello, Beth.
Yes,
You are on with the board.
thank you. Good evening, board members, Mr. Alvarado, cabinet, and listeners. My name is Beth Hollander, and I am a proud alumnus of Viola Pershing Elementary, Central Union High School, and a proud teacher at Steinbeck Elementary for 23 years. I realize that this has been tabled, but we would still like to show our support for the 10 high school teachers that are proposed to be eliminated from their positions. I'd like to read a letter that was signed by 30 Steinbeck teachers and our school nurse. We are writing to communicate our concern with the possible layoff of 10 of our colleagues due to the reduction of units at the high school level of education. We believe that the 7-period schedule with teachers teaching 5 periods and a 6th period offered for student support would be most beneficial for our high school students, staff, and their families. With such a schedule, our students would have the opportunity to take necessary elective courses that would assist in college preparation. Many of our families and staff members chose Central Unified because of the quality educational programs provided for our students. We are certain you would wish to continue offering this exceptional educational opportunity. We also believe that by keeping all of our high school teachers, this would present a perfect opportunity to start lowering class sizes, which has been a discussion between the district teachers and our families.
Beth,
we believe there is room
that
in the
concludes your
district's
minute and a
budget
half.
to keep these teachers, and it is in the best interest of our students, their families, staff, and the entire district to move forward with each of these high school students.
Thank you, Beth, for your comment.
The next caller we have is Lance Canoyer, staff member.
Hello, Lance.
Hi,
You are on with the board. You have a minute and a half.
I'm on with the board. Okay. Greetings, board and superintendent. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. I'll take that as a yes. My name is Lance Canoyer, science teacher at Central High School East Campus. I have written letters of recommendation for Central students who have gone on to attend schools like UCLA, UC San Diego, UC Berkeley, Brown, Georgetown, and Yale. And through my experience, I have realized that the college admission process is very competitive. Getting a scholarship becomes even more competitive. Our students' ability to consistently participate in electives like band, folklorico, and drama allows them to demonstrate their commitment and focus to a shared learning environment. This makes our students more competitive. Furthermore, our students' ability to consistently take multiple AP classes allows them to demonstrate their ability to take on college-level work. This makes our students more models who show incoming freshmen what really is possible at our school. They demonstrate the qualities of college and career readiness. Because of this, I am respectfully asking the board and superintendent to reconsider both the decision to let go of the 10 teachers and the decision to transition to a 6-period schedule. Having fewer teachers going forward presents the distinct possibility that elective teachers will need to be reassigned to teach core classes. So if there is demand for 2 or 3 classes of a particular elective or AP subject, will there be staff available to meet that demand? Not if we don't have the teachers. And what will happen when the 6-period schedule creates scheduling conflicts that prevent students from being able to take a class? It seems like a 7-period
Lance,
schedule
that
would
concludes your minute and a half with the board. Thank you for your comment.
It would also allow students to take more classes. In closing, I respectfully ask the board and superintendent. Yes, I'm almost done here. I respectfully ask that the board and superintendent take the opportunity to work to come to a solution regarding a schedule that helps all our students achieve their goals. Thank you.
Our next caller will be Tom Burkhart with CUDA.
Tom?
Yes.
Hi, you have a minute and a half with the board.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Tom Burkhart, and I would like to share a few words with you tonight. I appreciate your time and attention. I strongly encourage you to put Central students first when collaborating with teachers on a high school schedule that may last as long as the current high school schedule has, 25 years. Central students would greatly benefit from an additional regular period to pursue an education that affords choice to students at both ends of the achievement spectrum. Students who struggle can receive intervention and support and even make up missing credits during this extra period in the school day. Without this additional period, our graduation rates will decline as students will have to make up missing credits in summer school and after school hours without the support of a teacher in the room. Students who excel can challenge themselves and enhance their competitiveness for college applications by taking additional academic electives, including AP classes for college credit. Finally, students who want to pursue career pathways and learn real-world job skills during this additional scheduled class period can learn marketable job skills. Again, I strongly encourage you to pursue a 7-period schedule to meet the needs of our students. Thank you for your time and attention. Take care.
Thank you for your comment.
At this time, we do not have any other callers waiting in the queue.
Thank you. And with that, that will conclude our comments from the public. We will move on to our next agenda item, our consent agenda. Before we take action, I would like to pull item 3 from the consent agenda for further discussion. Are there any other items any board member wishes to pull? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the remainder of the consent agenda items, which would be items approve board policy 5132, dress and grooming? Yes, I'm pulling that item. Okay. Hearing no other items being pulled, what are the wishes of the board on the remainder of the agenda? That would be approving items 1, 2, and items 4 through 9.
Motion to approve.
Thank you. I have a motion by trustee Cervantes. I have a second by trustee Brooks. All in favor, please say aye or communicate your support.
Aye. Aye.
Motion carries 7-0. Now, I pulled item 3 for discussion. The last time we were presented with this item, and in further review, I have great concerns regarding the language that distinguishes a different policy for our K through 6 and our 7 through 12. Specifically, the language, this can be found on AR 5132, subsection C, and actually it is item H on the document. Grades TK through 6 are not allowed to wear tights unless they are worn underneath dresses, skirts, skirts, shorts, or culottes. Is that what that is? And leggings must be thick enough so that you can see through them. However, grades 7 through 12 are not permitted to wear any leggings or tights. I just don't understand, well, it's probably not that I don't understand. I don't see why we have different policies. So if you can provide any information to support why we have that distinction, I would greatly appreciate it.
Good evening, President Carrillo, members of the board, Superintendent Alvarado. The current dress code language is based on the conversation from, I believe it was 2017, if I'm remembering correctly, when that conversation was last addressed and discussed by the board, and the board came to the decision to include that language for that item.
Thank you. So, do we have any, I know the last time this item came before us, and I think it's still part of this agenda, any requests by any students or parents to revise the policy?
When we reached out to our stakeholders, we did have 2 requests that were submitted to sites in regards to this item, requesting that the item of leggings or yoga pants would be allowable for grade 7, 12 in the dress code language.
The other question, do we have any information as to the number of students being disciplined for not complying with this policy?
Our student information systems does not have a specific code to identify a specific dress code violation, although there is a code that is associated with dress code violations, and then specificities to certain those incidents would be in the comment section. So you can query the amount of dress code violations, but would have to go through and further look at them individually to see what the reason for that violation was.
Thank you. So I do want to propose an amendment, but a revision to the policy, and it would just be to have the same policy for all grades. But I do know that Trustee Chan wanted to also discuss this item. So are there any comments or questions regarding any of my concerns regarding the policy? Trustee Paul?
Yeah, as far as the difference, I would see the reason for the difference, and it would be related to the development of the kids. You know, as they get older and get through adolescence, they're developed, and I can see the reason for the difference. I just wanted to state that.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Trustee Chan?
I wanted to raise also just on the item, the clause with regards to explanation of clothing that depicts college or professional sports logos that are prohibited. I wanted to recommend actually deletion of the examples of those both that are permissible and not permissible. I think some of these are dated, and if we are making ongoing analysis about if specific tire has, if we perceive it has certain gang affiliations, then if we're making ongoing analysis, then I don't think it seems to me that this is rather old and dated in terms of what we have, and that we don't need to actually list out specific ones. Specific universities, especially if we're constantly looking at on an ongoing basis. It's the section number 3 on the number 3 on the longer document. What is that?
Are you referring to item 3A?
Correct.
Clothing that depicts?
Correct. I remember the affiliation with the Georgetown Hoyas. I don't think any students today would. And even I think who are perceived as Raiders fans have changed as well. So I think listing these out isn't really required, and especially if, like I said, if we're I think I read prior, we're reviewing these on a semesterly basis, then I think we can make determinations as opposed to prejudging certain groups.
Trustee Paul?
So I'm just to make sure I'm straight, what you're saying is that to just keep the language but remove the examples. Got it. Thank you.
Okay, so with that, I will make a motion to revise the policy removing the examples under, is it the gang-related apparel? And to revise item H so that the policy regarding no tights and the leggings is the same. So really, it would remove the grades TK through 6 and grades 7 through, actually, the entire second portion of that.
Do we have recommended language, Mr. Garrett, after speaking to administration on the, specifically on the tights and leggings?
We do not have any specific language crafted at this time. If it pleases the board, we can return with some language at the next meeting.
So I'm making a motion just to leave the grades, the language under TK through 6, but it's going to be removing the specific identification of that only applies to grades TK through 6 and the second portion, and the removal of the examples under the gang apparel. So at this time, is there a second for my motion?
Can you read how it will read?
So section H would be revised to only read, no tights may be worn unless they are worn beneath dresses, skirts, skirts, shorts, or culottes. Leggings must be thick enough so as not to see through. Correct. It would be striking the paragraph identified as grade 7 through 12 and striking grade 7 TK through 6. So I do have a motion on the floor. Thank you. I have a second by Trustee Chan. All in favor, please say aye or communicate your support.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so I have 1, 2, 3, I have 4 ayes. Any opposed? I have 3 opposition, Trustee Cervantes, Trustee Paul, Trustee Solis, and motion carries 4-3-0. Thank you, staff. We move on to our action items. As I previously stated, item L1 was tabled to March 9th. So we will move on to item L2, approve out-of-state travel. Superintendent Alvarado.
Thank you, President Carrillo, members of the board. We have coming to you this evening is an approval of out-of-state travel. All out-of-state travel for which reimbursement will be claimed shall be approved by the board of trustees. This is the Model Schools Conference. This was denoted in the superintendent's goals that were presented to the board. This was actually canceled last summer because of COVID, and it's being offered again at the end of June, assuming that it is safe to travel at that time. The Model School Conference is just that. It's one of the premier conferences that is offered in the nation, quite frankly. It's only offered on the East Coast. But this is where they bring in 100 of the top school districts, not only in the nation but internationally, to share some of the innovation that's taking place, not only here in the United States but also abroad. The information is attached. Staff is recommending for the board to approve the out-of-state travel.
Thank you. Do we have any comments from the public? Hearing no comments, any questions or comments from the board? Trustee Paul?
Yeah, I'm just curious in that conference, do we have anyone local that's part of a a panel or anything like that?
Aware of on locally?
Do we have good representation from our local school districts there?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you.
This is a conference that was frequently attended. It's ever since it goes back to 2005 for me, and it was actually the whole rigor relevance relationship framework that eventually made its way to California was started by the model schools by Bill Daggett, Dr. Daggett. We kind of joke about it because it took about 7 years to get to the West Coast after it was started over in the East Coast, but it's a very well-respected conference, and absolutely folks from California do definitely attend in great numbers.
Any other comments or questions? Trustee Cervantes?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just had a quick question on the header of each day. It says virtual or in person. Is that just in the event that the travel is not available? So the conference will still be offered virtually?
That's correct. Yeah, it'll still be offered virtually. I think you can actually select at this point if you would like to attend it virtually. If you have reservations of flying or attending it, I'm not going to participate virtually for 3 days on a conference that goes from 8 to 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon.
Just a friendly reminder to all of us, if you do not use your mic, our community who is listening via broadcast cannot hear you. Any other comments or questions on this item? Hearing and seeing nothing further, what are the wishes of the board on the item? I have a motion for approval by Trustee Cervantes. Is there a second?
Second.
I have a second by Trustee Paul. All in favor, please say aye or communicate your support.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Motion carries 7-0. Thank you. Our next item is item L3, approve amendment to the Talk Team contract for speech language pathology services. Assistant Superintendent Davis.
Thank you, President Carrillo. This contract with Talk Team is critical to our services of students who have required speech and language services as part of their IEPs, their individual educational plans. We have held a contract with this vendor for 3 years and utilize their services much like we utilize a substitute for a teacher in a classroom. They provide the additional support to make sure we have continuity of services. We are bringing this to you tonight to recommend that we increase the dollar value for this, which comes before you being over $50,000, with a not to exceed $99,000. We don't anticipate using all of that, but we want to be ready to make sure services are available for our students should they be needed this spring through the summer. We do recommend approval after answering any questions.
Thank you. Do we have any public comment? Hearing no public comment, are there any questions or comments from the board? Trustee Paul?
Thank you. Just reading through the contract, looks like the original amount was for around $50,000, and then the additional is for an additional $50,000. The question I have is related to the language. It says, the original says for the 2021 school year is approved by Cabinet 8/3/20, and then the amendment is also for the 2021 school year for a period of 8/12 to 6/30. So it's one period of the contract for the original was 8/3/20 to 6/30/21, and then the additional amount is for the period between 8/12/20 and 6/30/21. So I'm not following that.
Is the question why the 2 8 August dates are different, or just why there's the overlap? I just want to make sure I'm answering the right question.
Yeah. The question has to do with if we've got a dollar amount set aside for a certain period of time, and this says to continue services, but it's the same period. I don't understand that.
So we intended to provide services. What we usually have is not to exceed $48,000 to $50,000. This is a different year. It's a unique year in terms of needs for substitutes as have been required. And so when we went back to them and said, we anticipate going over the amount that we're contracted for, we need a new contract, they said, no, we just do an amendment. We'll send you the amendment to add on for the same period of time, beginning in August through the end of the year. So it was how they drew up the contract. We too had to read it a few times, but the intent is services are continuing right now. There's an overlap of time, and one of those projects could exceed the 48,000, so we want it continuing through the course of the school year. If that helps. I know you deal with contracts a lot more.
Yeah, it seems kind of odd that we had an original amount and we're doubling it for the same time period, so.
Our services, right, our services virtually are different. This is a typical contract that we have and are able to stay within. And when we need substitutes, that sometimes we don't know that we're going to need a substitute or an external evaluation that's coming a part of a requirement for a new student coming into district. We try to anticipate those, and this year we were off on that. And certainly we don't want to put too much money into a contract if we can maintain the supports within district. This is a unique setting for us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Cervantes?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just had a quick question in regards to where the money's going to come from. Is it going to come out of the general fund, or are you utilizing COVID grant money for that?
We're utilizing COVID grant money for this. This is a perfect example of different services requiring because of COVID.
I just wanted to make sure the public knew where the dollars were coming from. Thank you.
And just for clarification, we're increasing your authority to contract services up to the 100,000 or the additional 50,000, but we're not actually paying out at this time that amount unless we contract the services.
You are providing us the authority to work up to that amount, yes.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Hearing none, what are the wishes of the board on this item?
Move to approve.
Thank you. I have a motion by Trustee Paul. Is there a second? I have a second by Trustee Cervantes. All in favor, please say aye or communicate your support.
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0. Thank you. Next, we will hear item L4, approve Justin Garza High School furniture purchase, project number B102. Assistant Superintendent McLean.
Thank you, President Carrillo. So tonight we are bringing back this item that we discussed last time regarding the furniture purchase for the new high school, Justin Garza High School. Our staff have been working for weeks and weeks with this company, Meteor, who is providing the proposal for us. They have been working with both administrative staff and facilities staff, and they're a national company, but they do have a local presence and very experienced in education, and we worked with them, if you recall, with the Madison modernization. We worked with the same company. So at this time, we are recommending approval of the furniture proposal for Justin Garza High School as presented.
Thank you. Do we have any public comment on this item? Hearing no public comment, are there any questions or comments from the board? There were some questions. Can you provide us any information regarding the type of furniture, like the classroom furniture that's going to be acquired? Do we currently have the same desks or chairs in any of our current schools?
Furniture continues to change with the needs of schools, and I guess that there's always more research going on. So as time goes by, you get different furniture, but it's very much research driven. That's why we work with Meteor, is because they're very experienced in providing solutions that will meet the needs of the students. So again, they're talking directly with staff. Some of the things that you can get today probably weren't even available 5 or 10 years ago. So it's constantly updated, but I don't know if there are any other questions. I hope that helps a little bit.
Yeah, one of the questions specifically had to do with the student desks and whether or not it was that traditional, where you slide into the chair as opposed to a chair that comes up to a table. I believe the ones we got for Garza are depicted in that attachment. The student desks, they are tables with chairs, correct?
Yeah, there are tables. You can see there was an attachment there of a standard classroom. You know, the style nowadays, I think, is more and more collaborative in approach, and more of what you might have seen in years past in colleges is now being seen in high schools. Just technology impacts the classroom as well. But yeah, the tables and chairs.
Thank you. Trustee Mailing?
Yes, is this going to include all the furniture for Garza, or do you anticipate purchasing more?
This is the furniture for the first phase for the opening of the school. As you know, we have additional plans in the next phase for our Visual and Performing Arts Center. So some of that furniture will come in conjunction at the same time as the VAPA building is being developed.
Trustee Cervantes?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Does this dollar amount fall under the budget restraints that we have put upon furniture purchase?
Yes, so going back to the original budget, it is within our budget.
Allocated budget, thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Any other questions or comments on this item? Hearing none, what are the wishes of the board on the item?
Motion to approve.
I have a motion by Trustee Solis. Is there a second? I have a second by Trustee Brooks. All in favor, please say aye or communicate your support.
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0. Thank you. We move on to item L5, approve purchase of air purification equipment. Assistant Superintendent McLean.
Thank you, President Carrillo. So at the last meeting, the board approved the purchase of the plasma air units, air purification equipment to be installed at the 14 elementary school sites. And we are expecting those units to arrive probably in the next week or so. We explained before that we would be taking this into two different action items. First, the elementaries, because we know that those are the first to come forward for reopening of school. And now we have the information for the middle schools, high schools, alternative education campuses, and the district offices. And so this recommendation is being made now to approve the purchase of these air purification equipment for those locations that I just mentioned. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Do we have any comments from the public? Hearing no comments, are there any questions or comments from the board? Okay, Trustee Cervantes and then Trustee Mailing.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think this question has already been asked, so I apologize if it's a little redundant, but maintenance costs in terms of like replacing filters and things, I think if I remember correctly, it was very, very minimal. Am I correct?
That is correct. These are UV systems, and so they are, there's not, it's not a filter mechanism. It's attached to the air systems, the ventilation systems, and will not have a filter in this situation.
So the maintenance of them are no additional special requirements or cost?
Yeah, these are designed to last for years and years.
Thank you.
Trustee Mailing.
Yes, is there a time limit on these COVID funds, or is it use it or lose it type scenario?
The COVID funds we get are coming in different installments, if you will, and different resource codes within the budget, and so they expire at different times. We have some that are expiring this year. We have some that will expire in 2022, and the latest approval, which we're still waiting to receive the next phase of federal funds, will expire in 2023.
Any other comments or questions? Hearing none, what are the wishes of the board on the item? I have a motion by Trustee Chan. Is there a second? I have a second by Trustee Mailing. All in favor, please say aye or communicate your support.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries 7-0. Thank you, and with that, we move to our information items. Our first item, M1, receive information on reopening schools for 2020-2021. We will hear from all of our assistant superintendents, so I will give you the floor.
Thank you, President Carrillo, members of the board, and our community. We are going to give our community and our board an update on the return to campus plan. We do have some good information to report. The numbers, the data for Fresno County continue to trend in the downward direction, which is good. The positivity rate for that just came out today is a 6.6 positivity rate. That was down from 7.9 last week. The cases per 100,000 went from 22.8 to 16.6. Then the health equity metric went from 10 to 8.3. We're anticipating that if this continues, if this trend continues, that we're about 2 weeks out from the county falling into a red designation, which would be great. Because as you may recall, the board on December the 15th took action to return elementary students once we get into the red category, and then the high school, middle school and high school students once we get into the orange category. And so our plan is once the county hits red, we will send correspondence to our parents and guardians, letting them know that we will, in the next 2 weeks, be returning our elementary kids back to our schools. So we're very excited about that. Let's just hope that this trend continues. Remember to continue to wear your masks out there and social distance and all the other protocols that have been in place. I do want to note before I hand it over to Mrs. Davis that we did make some changes to this presentation late this afternoon. There was some more information on this PowerPoint, but that's going to come back to the community on March 9th because there are some changes that are being made, and I'll have Mrs. Davis go ahead and jump in.
All right, before we move off this, what I'd like to start with is to show you just quickly for the most current information from any of our websites. Once you get to Central Unified or to any school, if you go to the landing page there, right on the front side, you can see a link to return to school. We encourage people not only to pay attention to what's available through social media, but also to visit this site. We keep all sorts of resources and updates here on the different processes that are in place for our return. There is also a video helping to identify for students and families what they can expect upon return. We also plan to begin over the next course of the next few weeks to provide information to help students plan for and families plan for schedules, and also for how to expect that work will be at school and how to be in their classrooms as an elementary student. And so we're excited to get more of that information out. But for people who have questions at this time, there's quite a bit of information here and available to our public. And if you scroll down to the bottom, we have it all translated also in Punjabi and Spanish, as well as a number to call if you cannot find the answer to your question. And so we do encourage people to visit the site and visit it often, and then we will do our best as well to get more information out. From that point, I'd like to turn the lights back up and move off this. Could you grab? I also wanted to share with you just briefly, as Superintendent Alvarado mentioned, we have some pilot classrooms who have been giving us feedback, and so our commitment over the course of this next week is to work on refining the hybrid schedule and the communication out to families so we can get that sooner rather than later. We know that people want to make plans. This is a different schedule than typically you have in elementary school, and so we want to get ready to communicate that out. So we're looking forward to bringing that back on March 9th. Our teachers are working hard on the professional development side of preparing to teach in a hybrid setting. They did an outstanding job getting ready as we transitioned last March, and then for August in the ways that they've been teaching. We have 119 of our elementary teachers that have already completed the sequence of training to prepare for hybrid instruction in their classroom, and we have 100 of them in process as well. So we're getting really close to having them ready to go. And some who have not started have indicated that they wanted to do it as close to the start so the information was fresh. So kudos to our folks that are digging in and figuring out how to be ready for students to return in a different setting. Mr. Klegian, it's yours.
Thank you, Mrs. Davis. Thank you, Mrs. Davis. Quick update from the surveillance testing side of the house. Our partnership with United Health Centers remains a positive one. We are still holding monthly surveillance testing for COVID-19 in the East Campus parking lot. Our surveillance testing administration for February 16th, we had 84 staff members tested. The results we received yesterday, 0 positive cases from the 84 that we have tested. We have our next surveillance testing administration to take place on March 16th. We have 150 staff members who have been contacted to conduct the testing and will provide the results accordingly. Also, we've heard some good news through the Fresno County Health Department and also through United Health Centers. We've learned recently that the availability of vaccines can be ready for our active staff members in Central Unified as early as March. We have a sit-down meeting with United Health Centers this Thursday to begin the planning and rollout process for that. We have our priority list ready and consent from employees who are ready and willing to take the vaccinations as well. So we're looking forward to planning that with the hopes that early March we will begin the first dose of vaccinations for our active employees. Thank you very much.
That concludes staff's presentation on this item.
Thank you. Do we have any public comment?
We do not have any calls at this time.
Hearing no public comment, I will now open the floor for any comments or questions from the board. Are there any comments or questions on this item? Trustee Cervantes?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Collegian, can you touch bases a little bit about the second phase? I know you talked primarily about the first phase of vaccinating our employees, but the second phase?
Absolutely, Mr. Cervantes. The first phase would include 500 vaccinations for active staff. And the second phase, if planning goes well and the availability of the vaccine is still there, would occur 1 week thereafter. And then dose 2 would come 21 or 28 days right after the initial vaccination.
How many phases do you anticipate it's going to take to vaccinate our entire staff, our willing staff?
Right now, our numbers are right about 900 staff who are ready and willing to take the vaccination. And again, the availability of the vaccine and in early March would allow us to do 2 administrations for dose 1. I see we could probably get this done, phase 1 with 500 doses being taken care of through United Health over 2 days. And then again, 1 week after to do the same, and then repeat the cycle for the second dose.
2 weeks.
2 weeks for dose 1, correct.
Any other questions or comments? Trustee Paul?
I had a question, Ms. Davis, about the pilot program. Can you, I'm not sure I completely understood. You said you had 100 of them ready to go. Can you elaborate on that a little bit, just so I understand? Did I hear that right?
We don't have 100 ready to go. We have 4 pilot classrooms, and then we have our cohorts that are back. In those classrooms, they're able to give us feedback. We have a K, a second, a third, and a special education teacher who are utilizing the equipment and helping give us some feedback in terms of their perspective, their parents' perspective, and how it's set up and how we can prepare for all of our classrooms. In addition to that, we have cohorts at every school where there are groups of students that are in working. So we've been checking in, watching to see what's happened, listening to how things have worked, and are trying to take all of that information and adjust accordingly.
Okay, that's what I thought was going on, but I don't know where I got the 100 from, so thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Trustee Cervantes, this is your last question.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just another point of clarification. One, I just want to make sure that the public knows if the policy that if we have an outbreak of 3 or more per campus or per site, it's an automatic shutdown by county, or is that changed?
Mr. Cervantes, the clarification on that hasn't changed from the last time we shared. The 3 cases, however, have to be within that 14-day period and related to one another. So it has to be closely related to that group or cohort where the outbreak can take place. The determination ultimately lies in the hands of the health department. So in the event that we did have 3 cases within 14 days in that connected group, we'd provide that information very swiftly to the health department, and they'd ultimately make the recommendation on whether the school closure needs to take place or not.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And just to reiterate, that's not a board policy or a Central Unified District board policy. That's the directive and essentially the law or the regulations, both by county and other agencies that have regulation authority.
Correct, this is true.
Thank you. Trustee Paul?
Yeah, thank you, Trustee Cervantes, for asking that, because I forgot to ask about that. So I was a little confused in the new guidance. So if you look at the guidance, it says the definition of an outbreak is 3 or more confirmed or probable cases of staff. So what you described, that's an outbreak. Then down below, under school closure determinations, within a 14-day period, an outbreak has occurred in 25% or more stable groups in the school. So that's the rationale, or that's the benchmark for closing, correct? So what does that look like in terms of numbers?
I think the best way to answer that question, Mr. Paul, is to, in the event that there's an outbreak in a cohort, let's use an example of a mathematics classroom. And if the cohort was as big as 19, then 25% of the outbreak took place in there, then again, it would be subject to closure. Could be a rolling closure, and again, the recommendation would be made through the health department after we provide them the guidance and the information of the potential outbreak at the school site.
Okay, so the 25% concerns not the groups, but the individuals within each group?
My understanding, Mr. Paul, it has to be within a 14-day window period, and the cases have to be related to one another through contact tracing. So the non-example would be if there were 3, 4, 5 cases over a 14-day period that were not related to one another, and contact tracing yielded that they weren't close contacts, they didn't have any interactions together.
Okay, so what is a stable group in a school?
A stable group is a group of students that stay, in our case for elementary or with cohorts, with 1 adult or 2 adults, if you have an 8 in the classroom, and don't move or mix with other groups of students. So they wouldn't be rotating to different classrooms with 15 different kids in the class. They stay as a unit throughout the day. And don't interact with multiple services or people. The California Department of Public Health uses the word cohort and stable group interchangeably, even though they also write a few different rules for cohorts than they do for stable groups.
Okay, so this is kind of a rubric. In other words, if any one of these conditions apply. So it could be 25% of stable groups, or within 14 periods, 3 outbreaks.
Yes, I think contact tracing is the key here. If contact tracing yields that they were close contacts and they were related to one another, and that information would be transmitted to the health department, and we'd have to make a determination on what the next steps would be. Potentially a closure, potentially a rolling closure.
That's just the definition of outbreak, the box above. The school closure, you know, it states within a 14-day period, an outbreak has occurred in 25% or more stable groups in a school. That's when they decide to shut the school down. So it would have to be, first of all, identify how many stable groups we have, and then if all of a sudden if there's an outbreak, I mean, if there's an outbreak and it's 25% of those said groups at that school, then the school would then be shut down.
Yeah, I get the difference between the outbreak and the closure. I'm just trying to get an idea of numbers, because that's really confusing. So, Thank you.
Can you please use your mic?
If
Thank
we
you.
had, if we had an A-B schedule in, let's say, 5th grade, and we pick a school that has 800 kids in the entire school, all right? You follow me with that? Okay, so it's 5th grade. How many students would we have in that are actually enrolled in 5th grade at let's say, you know, McKinley? What would be the guess? How many kids? Okay, so if there's 150 kids, then we're going to break those into an A-B schedule, right? So there'd be 75 5th graders in A, 75 5th graders in the PM in B. And the number, those 75 in AM would actually be assigned to a teacher, a 5th grade teacher in a stable group. And that number would be roughly, what, 10 in a class, 15?
Up to 18, it could be.
Okay, let's keep it simple. Let's say it's 20, right? So if we have 20 and there's 80 kids, right, that means we have 4 stable cohorts in 5th grade. If that was the only 5th grade class, that means that one of those 4 would have to be, would fall in that category of an outbreak. If that was the case, we shut down that whole class. I mean, that whole school, if that was a number.
Maybe not the whole school, but potentially that cohort. If their contact tracing yielded that they stayed together enough to where they weren't in contacts with other individuals, potentially.
If that 5th grade made up the entire school, okay, is what I'm saying. So there would only be 4 stable groups.
That's right. This is true.
Right.
Thank you for the explanation. It's clear as mud. So how many times have we seen this change?
Very often. In terms of the Department of Public Health has released 2 significant documents this year, and what we provided you as an attachment this evening was the comparison from the original to now. In between those times, they have also released guidance on return to play for our visual and performing arts, and also for any health adjustments if new information becomes available, and specifics to cohorts. So there have been some side documents or letters provided in between those 2 significant documents. We attached for you the comparison between the 2 because we found it very helpful to try to undo some of the things we learned March through October and understand better, still clear as mud, but understand better what the new obligations or recommendations are from the Department of Public Health. Following each of the Department of Public Health's documents, our Fresno County Department of Public Health also releases a guidance specific to the data of our county. And so we have also received documents from those agencies as well.
One last question.
Last one, though.
Thanks for your patience. So as schools have been opening, and I realize we're on the slow side of that, but we're making progress, and that's great. What are we seeing? Do we know? Has anyone reported, or people watching? I got to imagine they're watching like hawks. What kinds of impacts there are to positive cases as schools open in our area? Are we watching that?
We get weekly updates from our colleagues in our networks. After being open, schools also produce dashboards to help provide information on not cases in their community, but any cases that are tied directly to campus. In my conversation with colleagues, they are experiencing, like us with cohorts, a student that is outside of school on a quarantine for some family event or reason, and so they're in a quarantine for that purpose, but have not heard of any schools closed down. What we have heard of is when perhaps as this definition of outbreak, that some schools have had to change their testing parameters or adjust some of their protocols on campus. The health department works closely with the lead nurse and the school district to determine what the next best step is. I don't know any, but I haven't scrubbed every campus, but boy, we are watching any school that's open to learn from them for sure.
So just an oversimplification is that it's been pretty successful, would you say?
I would, yes. The information we receive weekly has been positive ones in terms of numbers being low or in some cases non-existent in terms of outbreaks.
Great, thank you very much.
I do just want to clarify, and I hope that that continues to be the trend. A lot of this reporting, or at least the public reporting of the dashboard, is recent. And I believe it's only schools that have fully opened. Like we Central Unified is not required at this stage, given our cohorts or our pilot programs, to report any of that information on any state or local dashboard, correct?
Correct, but the county is still requiring us to submit data, and our SIS department is doing that weekly.
Great, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Thank you very much. We'll move on to our next item. M2, receive
President Carrillo, we did have a call that came in while you guys were talking. I don't know if you guys had already decided.
We've concluded our public comment for that. Thank you. Our next item is M2, receive information regarding energy savings contract with Synergistic LLC. Assistant Superintendent McLean.
Thank you, President Carrillo. So tonight, bringing forward a item which is an energy savings contract with a company called Synergistic. They're a large national company that works with hundreds and hundreds of clients, including school districts, to work towards energy conservation. And in their experience, when they get involved with a school district, there's an average savings of around 20 to 25% of energy costs. They use technology to provide technical assistance and expertise, and they also include a full-time energy specialist that would be assigned directly to the district that works directly with our team and our district to optimize our practices in energy management. And in terms of finances, there's no net budget cost to the district, and the reason that is because Synergistic, their approach is to guarantee that the district will achieve savings each year to cover the cost of their contract. If they don't, they will reimburse the difference. So I have some experience with them, and other districts in our area have used them with great success. So I wanted to bring this forward for discussion. I do have on the phone with us tonight Mr. Matt Bauer, who's Senior Vice President with Synergistic, and Jonathan Ward as well, who's a Vice President with the company. I'd be happy to answer any questions the board may have.
Before we open the floor for board discussion or questions, is there any public comment on the item? Hearing no public comment, any questions or comments from the board on this item? Trustee Solis?
Can you describe what strategies they're going to implement to make these savings?
I'm going to go ahead and get Mr. Bauer on here. So, Matt, give me a second. Can you hear me, Mr. Bauer?
Yes, I can.
Okay. So the question is, what types of strategies does Synergistic use in conjunction with their program?
Yeah, I appreciate that question, and it's not uncommon to get that. A lot of what we do focuses on 4 core competencies, and that's maintaining comfort. So we're going to be looking at systems and how they're set. The other would be the occupancy and what parts of buildings and the schools are students attending and needing conditioning versus the areas that are not. And then third, and probably most importantly, is the optimization of your existing mechanical makeup. So we're not here to purchase new equipment or replace. We're here to really utilize and maximize the capabilities of your existing systems.
So describe more on when you're saying that making it comfortable, are you basically going to be setting determine what a comfortable temperature in a room is for you, and then somehow lock the system out?
So, Mr. Bauer, I don't know if you could hear the question. The question regarded the setting of temperature settings within the district, and how would that be defined in terms of comfort?
So we take a look at each building, and we are a data-driven company. So we use information collected from data loggers to find out the recovery time for each one of your classrooms and your buildings. And I think everyone would agree, schools and buildings are like personalities. They're going to require a different setting for each one in order to maintain the comfort. So I think what's important to stress is that the synergistic program, actually we see an improvement in the comfort for your constituents and your students. We really focus on what's happening when there are no people in the buildings, making sure that during that unoccupied period, that 4 a.m, that midnight time period, we're out there auditing your facilities to ensure that what needs to be set back is in fact not running when it shouldn't be.
So I guess my question would be to you, Mr. McLean. How is this different, or is it duplication of services, what our current facilities should be doing with our newer buildings, since they have computer-controlled climate?
Our staff do impact that greatly, and this just provides another level of support and expertise and experience. They work with different districts across the country and also throughout California to help, again, optimize the systems. So they just lend a helping hand, if you will, in that, and work together with our staff. But it's really on top of what our staff is already doing in addition to. And we have had some level of energy management system for the past several years with another company that contract was expiring, and this program is a more comprehensive energy management system, if you will, than what we had before. So I think it's an improvement. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? I have some questions, or maybe just one. Can you help me understand when we would be paying anything out? I think at the start of the contract, it talks about no fees being charged like the first month. But if this contract is being presented to us as we really don't, it's not going to cost our district anything, because if we don't save anything, then we don't pay anything out. When does that happen?
So I'll be trying to answer the question, and Mr. Bauer, you can add on if need be. But the question was to do with the how the contract is charged. So yeah, the first month is kind of just a startup period to get things up and going, and then it kicks in, and there's a monthly fee that is paid that covers the cost of the program. And then at the end of each year, there's a settle up, if you will. So they're keeping track throughout the year. We can see how we're doing on savings on a monthly basis compared to our costs, and then a true up at the end of the year. Mr. Bauer, would you like to add to that?
No, in fact, Steve, that's exactly what it is. We look at a 12-month interval period of time to ensure that period of savings has covered at a minimum the costs.
So the contract also talks about allocating our people resource, so our human resources, to facilitate the hiring of like a point person, which they would pay for, but they would be stationed at our campus, and we would assist, our human resources department would assist with hiring. Did I understand that correctly?
Yes, the question had to do with the hiring process, so that's exactly correct. They used our experience of our HR department to facilitate the process, but the specialist is their employee and is on campus on a daily basis and working through all of our campuses.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from the board? Okay, this item, I believe, is being recommended for action for our next agenda, next board meeting, which is March 9, 2021. So this item will return as an action item for further consideration by the board on March 9th, 2021.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next item is item M3, receive information regarding 2021 ballot for CSBA Delegate Assembly. Superintendent Alvarado.
Yes, thank you, President Carrillo. I'm trying, it looks like I lost connectivity again. Give me 1 second. So basically, we have the ballot is attached for the CSBA Delegate Assembly. We have Trustee Chan, who is on the ballot, and I don't have it in front of me right now because it's not coming up. But this item will return to the board at the next board meeting for vote. I believe there's 4 slots that are open. Is that correct? Yeah, 4 slots that are open this time around, and so we could have the chance of having 2 of our trustees serve on the delegate assembly. So it'll come back to the board for consideration at the next board meeting.
Do we have any public comment on this item? Hearing no public comment, any questions or comments from the board? Does this item need to return as action, or can it return under consent? Okay, so this item will return to our March 9th agenda under action. Our next item is M4, receive information regarding the 2020-2021 second interim budget report. Assistant Superintendent McLean.
Thank you, President Carrillo. So we will be bringing the second interim report to the March 9th board meeting for discussion and action. This is just an information item tonight to preview that's coming. We have 2 interim reports that we do each year. The second report will report revenues and expenditures through the cutoff date of January 31st. And then prior to approval, it will go to the county office for their approval and submission to the state. We hope to have the report and the presentation in the board's hands sometime next week, so there's time to review it prior to the board meeting.
Thank you. Any public comment on the item? Hearing no public comment, any questions or comments from the board? Can we ensure that the presentation highlights any COVID relief funding that we have received or are waiting to receive? And then just kind of highlighting what you shared earlier with Trustees Mailing's question, how much time we have to spend the money.
Yes, we can do that.
Thank you. Hearing no further comments, that'll conclude our information items. We move on to advanced planning. Superintendent Alvarado.
Pardon. The 12-month calendar is attached. If you have any questions, please direct those questions to my office.
Thank you. Additional information and closing comments. Is there any board member wishing to provide any closing comments at this time? Trustee Cervantes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to make sure that hopefully at next agenda that we have some learning loss information that we might be able to provide, so we can show our community that we're being proactive in terms of what we're going to do to recover some of that time that we've lost. Very important. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Cervantes. Administration is working on an item. I don't know if they're prepared to speak as to whether it'll appear at our next agenda, but otherwise it will be coming forward in March. Trustee Paul.
I just want to applaud staff for all the hard work. The question earlier about how many times have we seen changes come down and having to deal with that. I know it's difficult, and I know you're staying on top of it, but I just want to encourage everyone involved in making decisions for coming back to school absolutely as soon as possible, with whatever modifications or accommodations we need to make. I just would like to ask that everyone work together to that end as much as possible. So thank you. Thank you, Trustee Paul. Any other questions or comments? Okay.
That'll conclude. We move on. Our next board meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, March 9th, 2021, with 6 p.m. beginning our closed session and 7 p.m. for our open session, or as soon as thereafter. We will be open and here in person at the Central High East Campus Performing Arts Center. We will continue to broadcast our meetings and provide for the call-in number. And so again, thank you everyone who's here and those who are watching from home or wherever you may be joining us today. And with that, we do not need to adjourn to closed session or reconvene. And so our last and final item is adjournment. I have a motion by Trustee Chan. Is there a second? I have a second by Trustee Mailing. All in favor, please say aye or communicate your support.
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0. Thank you everyone and have a good night.